From Steppenwolf, a treatise on the Steppenwolf. There was once a man, Harry, called the Steppenwolf. He went on 2 legs, wore clothes, and was a human being, but nevertheless he was in reality a wolf of the steppes. He had learned a good deal of all that people of a good intelligence can, and was a fairly clever fellow. What he had not learned, however, was this: to find contentment in himself and his own life. The cause of this apparently was that at the bottom of his heart he knew all the time, or thought he knew, that he was in reality not a man, but a wolf of the steppes. Clever men might argue the point whether he truly was a wolf, whether, that is, he had been changed, before birth perhaps, from a wolf into a human being, or had been given the soul of a wolf, though born as a human being, or whether, on the other hand, this belief that he was a wolf was no more than a fancy or a disease of his. It might, for example, be possible that in his childhood he was a little wild and disobedient and disorderly, and that those who brought him up had declared a war of extinction against the beast in him, and precisely this had given him the idea and the belief that he was in fact actually a beast, with only a thin covering of the human. On this point one could speak at length and entertainingly, and indeed write a book about it. The Steppenwolf, however, would be none the better for it, since for him it was all one whether the wolf had been bewitched or bitten into him, or whether it was merely an idea of his own. What others chose to think about it, or what he chose to think himself, was no good to him at all. It left the wolf inside him just the same. And so the Steppenwolf had 2 natures, a human and a wolfish one. This was his fate, and it may well be that it was not a very exceptional one. There must have been many men who have had a good deal of the dog or the fox, of the fish or the serpent in them, without experiencing any extraordinary difficulties on that account. In such cases the man and the fish lived on together, and neither did the other any harm. The one even helped the other. Many a man indeed has carried this condition to such enviable length that he has owed his happiness more to the fox or the ape in him than to the man. So much for common knowledge. In the case of Harry, however, it was just the opposite. In him the man and the wolf did not go the same way together, but were in continual and deadly enmity. One existed simply and solely to harm the other, and where there are 2 in one blood and in one soul who are at deadly enmity, then life fares ill. Well, to each his lot, and none is light. Now, with our Steppenwolf it was so that in his conscious life he lived now as a wolf, now as a man, as indeed the case is with all mixed beings. But when he was a wolf, the man in him lay in ambush, ever on the watch to interfere and condemn, while at those times that he was a man, the wolf did just the same. For example, if Harry, as a man, had a beautiful thought, felt a fine and noble emotion, so performed a so-called good act, then the wolf bared his teeth at him and laughed and showed him with bitter scorn how laughable this whole pantomime was in his eyes of a beast, of a wolf who knew well enough in his heart what suited him, namely to trot alone over the steppes, and now and then to gorge himself with blood or to pursue a female wolf. Then, wolfishly seen, all human activities became horribly absurd and misplaced, stupid and vain. But it was exactly the same when Harry felt and behaved as a wolf and showed others his teeth, and felt hatred and enmity against all human beings and their line and degenerate manners and customs. For then the human part of him lay in ambush and watched the wolf, called him brute and beast, and spoiled and embittered for him all pleasure in a simple and healthy and wild wolf's being.